should say first that I hate snow. And by hate snow, I mean I avoid it like the plague. When I first got hired at the job that I'm in now, and I realized that I could never possibly take all the vacation and comp days that I get, I told the boss at that time that my plan was to stay home anytime it was white outside. And he could call it a snow day, he could call it a day off, he could call it me working from home, which was not at that time something that they allowed us to do. It didn't really matter to me, but I was not going out in the snow. So that's the first thing. And that's kind of been me my whole life. Snow is just not an option. Secondly, I should also say that I'm not at all religious. I was not raised in a home where we went to church often or anything like that. So for the rest of my story, that should be a good backdrop. I was a strange child, and I'm entirely okay accepting that now. Strange enough that I would organize my friends to do things. I think I agree with a few of you that if you present people with an opportunity and you're excited enough about it, that they will typically come on board. So when I was in 5th grade, for whatever reason, I decided that I just needed to feel like my 3,300 person town was more of a community. I'm not entirely sure why the chief of police's daughter, who everybody knew, and I could have a conversation with anybody in the town, had to find a way to make this more of a community. But I did. And it was long about November at this point, and there were, Christmas movies on TV. And one feature of a lot of these Christmas movies is a trope of people caroling. And they go door to door. And it's so nice because people open the door and they smile as you sing to them. And, there's always just this warm feeling. No one, pays any attention to the fact that it's snowing or, the backdrop is cold. Or at least I didn't. And so me in my, 11-year-old brain thought, what a fantastic idea. I'll gather my friends and we will go caroling. Now, remember, Christmas caroling revolves around Christmas and also happens during one of the coldest months of the year, but I had put this to the back of my mind, and I started talking to some of my friends, and I made a phone call to the local nursing homes. There are 2 in our town, because I decided that we should get a warm-up the first night. We should get a warm-up by being inside and singing in front of a group that would welcome us. And so I convinced this activity director for one of the nursing homes to give us an hour. And I am now completely flying by the seat of my pants on the phone with her that I'm going to have a group and we're just going to need a small stage. We don't need a microphone, blah, 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 all these things. I have no idea. And so we now have a venue and a concert set up, and we are going to Christmas Carol. My friends that I had almost quite recruited for this, and then the next night we were going to go to the next nursing home, which didn't have an activity facility or anything like that. So instead we were going to go and really take our door-to-door debut within this community and knock on the doors or walk into the rooms of the nursing home residents. We were going to sing to them. And then after that, we were going to leave there so excited about what we had just done, and we were going to take to the streets, and we were going to knock on doors, and we were going to sing to people. I knew all the Christmas carols because you hear them right on the radio, but I didn't really know the Christmas carols. And I can't read music. Also, I only do karaoke if you're drinking, because that's the only way I sound good. So me leading a group of 11-year-olds around a town to do Christmas caroling was probably a very strange concept when I went to my mom and said, by the way, I need a ride for 15 of us. And she just looked at me like, where do you expect me to fit all these people? I don't have a clown car. And so we figured out a few parents who would take us and do this, trip first night to the nursing home and the second night to the nursing home and around town. And so it came long about the time that we were going to do this, and the forecast was calling for snow, and both of my parents, I was 100% sure, in opposite houses in their divorce, were sitting there going, there is no way this girl goes out in snow to do this. We're off the hook. But we did indeed go and do 2 nights of Christmas caroling, and that started a tradition. For whatever reason, I decided that 6 inches of snow the first year could only get better, and so 12 inches the next year for the night that we decided, and half the group because of it. It was also a lot of fun. So this tradition continued until I was a senior in high school. And after I went off to college, the group didn't do it anymore because there was no one crazy enough to convince them. But when I moved back home after, being away for a while, I was talking to a person who was going to run for one of our county commissioner seats later. But I was talking to him about having done this, and he was like, that's a fantastic idea, we should do this again, only we should do it in more communities. And so that year we put together a group called Skookapella, and we went to 4 different communities, in our county, and we did door-to-door Christmas caroling. And this is where I'm going to wrap up and end. So all of that time, while I really enjoyed doing this crazy thing that was completely out of character, I never enjoyed it so much as I did that year. It's not because we had different age groups together doing it. It's not because, it was nostalgic. It was because our group was old enough at that point to enjoy going out into the cold and then coming in from it to a bar to warm ourselves. But before we could do that, we had a little old gentleman who had answered the door in St. Clair, Pennsylvania, which, if you know anything about, is really at the foot of the mountains where coal was just trucked out by the tons and tons. And he was so impressed with our absolute off-key, horrible singing that he needed a drink. And he decided to offer us some. And so it was one of my first tastes of true homemade, what we call boilo, which I have given to a couple of you. It is a Schuylkill County staple. And so it was that evening that I realized that all of this quest through snow that I hate, with songs that I don't quite particularly get behind because the concept is a little weird, or to me, fairly, all came to its head and had truly paid off when I got my first little shot of very warm, apple pie tasting, whiskey-infused boilo. And so that itself was the first time that I was able to imbibe after it, but really truly brought me in from out of the cold.